You all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Palms down. Good morning, everybody. Anyone here for the first time? As we're here for the first time, what brings you here? Now that I put you on the spot, anybody want to share why they're here? Anybody know why they're here? You heard we're giving away free food, or what brings you here?
I'm just trying to find something to do myself that I haven't found yet.
Something to say within yourself? Anybody else relate to that? What else? What brings you here? Who's here a lot? Why do you keep coming back?
Liberation
Liberation
from suffering.
from suffering. What else?
Need a reminder.
Reminder. Reminder for or of what? All of it. That's a lot. Yep. There was a 12-year-old kid in our teen group last Sunday. And we started the group. I kind of do the icebreaker. They introduce themselves and say something about themselves. And their question was, what do you plan on doing this summer? And you never have any real expectation of what a teen is going to say. But I'm pretty sure if I had a million guesses, I would not have said what this kid said, which is he plans to work on his enlightenment. So that was from a 12-year-old. His journey to enlightenment. And he said he hopes it's challenging. So, yeah. And those of you who know me, I'm not often stumped or at a loss for words, but when he said that, I just moved on to the next person. So, yeah. So hopefully, in the great words of Xander, we can all work on our journey to enlightenment. And if we have it complete by the end of summer, we should be on pace for something. I'm not sure what, but yeah. So we'll start with the meditation practice. For those who are new or maybe sitting for the first time, a couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you, right? You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. No one's mind race all day long, just thinking and thinking and thinking doesn't shut off. This isn't going to stop your racing mind, unfortunately. Don't judge your practice. Meaning, don't ask yourself, is this working? Is this not working? Am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? We're just going to sit, we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds, right? People cough, phones ring. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. The practice of meditation is learning to get quiet and still within all the chaos. Most important, don't expect anything from this. If you're sitting there hoping or waiting for some grand awakening, you may leave pretty disappointed. So we're just going to sit, we're going to breathe. I'll say things periodically to remind you that you're lost in thought, or just to wake you up because you've fallen asleep, which isn't the end of the world, but you didn't come all this way and pay all this money to go to sleep. So do your best to stay awake. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on the cushions, often help sliding to the front third, pushing the stomach forward. Relaxing the shoulders, relaxing the hands. Resting the hands on the knees or in the lap. If you need to move, simply move. Movement doesn't make you a bad meditator, it just means your leg hurts. If you need to cough, simply cough. If you're on the chairs or benches, also just trying to sit up straight. Relaxing shoulders and hands. I'll guide us as we begin, and then we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Again, starting with the eyes closed, if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Knowing throughout the practice, you'll hear sounds. These are not distractions, not disruptions. Simply what's happening around us as we sit. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Letting go of expectation. Letting go of judgments from the practice. Just sitting, breathing. Where's your mind? Return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. body's still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds. And the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. No one else to be. Everything beautiful, just as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, it's quiet, calm, still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit, hold the hands across the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us, or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than anyone in this room, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means, very simply, for every one of us in this room, regardless of where we come from, or what we believe in, or where we think we're going, our whole life is filled with things that happen. We react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's what we get. That's it. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way we responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your days. So all we're working on is closing the gap where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy. Meditation is not necessarily fun. It's not an escape. It's not closing your eyes and pretending you're sailing down a river and looking at all the birds and trees and flowers and thinking life is wonderful. Life is filled with chaos. Life is filled with pain. Life is filled with what the Buddha called dukkha, suffering, discomfort, angst. This practice is waking up to that and recognizing the cause of our dukkha, recognizing our levels of greed and anger and ignorance, recognizing our ego, our pride, our selfishness, becoming aware of that, and working through that. So we're less greedy, less angry, less ignorant, less selfish, driven less by pride and ego. That's the practice. It's coming out of the sense of self that says, I am most important and I need this and I need that and I want this and I want that. And the world should do everything I want. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. Sitting, breathing, and learning to be kind to yourself and everybody else you encounter every moment of your life. If you can just be nice to you and everybody else, then it's no problem. As I mentioned earlier, 12-year-old Xander thinks he can figure this out in 3 months, so we got that going for us. Piece of cake. Might take us 4 months, but it's all right. So I'd rather just stop there, and I always prefer to respond to questions. Anything that's on your mind, dealing with meditation or Buddhist practice or anything you're sitting with that I can address, and we'll go from there. Yeah.
Towards the end of meditation, you say, you mentioned at Sutta Pratati something, and dependent origin. Could you explain that some more?
Yes. So the Buddha, as a human, was 35, and he had what they call the awakening. The word Buddha just means awakened, as I mentioned, for those who may be brand new and don't realize it. You know, the Buddha was no different than anyone in this room. He began to understand why he suffered, and he taught for 45 years the causes and ways to move beyond suffering. And the basis of this awakening, the Anapanasati Sutra, first of all, when they talk about meditation and breath, they say that when breathing in, you're taking a short breath, breathing out, taking a long breath. Just be aware of it. So the meditation practice is simple observation and recognition of breath. I'll start with this and then we'll get to Pratitya Samupata, dependent origination, but I want this part to be clear. And, you fast forward to 2019 and meditation being all over everything we read and see. Well, not everything, but this is California, so it's a lot of places. And there's so many things about it. Use it for this, use it for that. Use it to build your business, use it to build this, everything is like, do meditation and your whole world's going to be fixed. The Buddha said, just be aware of your breath. That doesn't fix anything. But when you're focused on the breath, or you're focused on a shoe, or you're focused on a bottle of water, if you're focused on one thing, what are you not focused on? Everything else. And when we focus on everything else, how does that tend to make us feel? Stressed out, anxious, overwhelmed, crazy, depressed, sad, angry. I'm sure none of you have any of these emotions, but just in case, right? So to me, the simple practice of meditation is where we start. And then in learning to stay present, we begin to recognize, I think, Pratitya Samupata, dependent origination, and I always say it's the basis of the Buddha's awakening, right? Is the way I understand dependent origination is that the Buddha began to understand the causes and conditions, the law of cause and effect, the causal relationship of all phenomena, that everything is contingent upon something else for its existence. Everything. Now, ironically enough, I just gave this similar description Tuesday night. Somebody asked, and I used the wooden bench that you're sitting on as an example, right? You weren't here Tuesday night, were you? No. Great, then I'll use it again. And even if you were, I'd still probably use it again. So you come in and you sit down, right? When you sit down on that bench, we all have different thoughts, but the thought is, oh, here's a wooden bench, I can sit down. But the thought probably did not go to the fact that for the last 92 years, thousands and thousands of people have sat on that bench. That bench came from the wood, the trees, the earth, the sun, the water, the people who made it, the people who've cleaned it, the people who've cared for it, the people who've moved it. Trust me, moving those aren't easy, right? There's so many things that go into the creation and lives that have been affected by simply that bench you're sitting on. But what we do is what? We come in and you're not guilty, the only one guilty of it, right? We come in and we just use it. My seat, my bench. We make sure we have our favorite seat, our favorite bench. I won't call out all of you who always sit in the exact same spot, right? Our favorite seat, everything, because it serves us. And we spend most of our lives coming from a lens of me, mine, what serves me. And so, are you with me so far? Dependent origination is understanding the causes and conditions that created everything, every moment, every person. Now, it's one thing to think about it as a bench because there's not too many emotions tied to that bench potentially. But use the same really example or metaphor I just gave for people. You ever interact with a stranger who says something you don't like? A lot of times. I was going to say once in a while. Thank you for saying a lot of times. Now, just like that bench, you have no idea the history of that stranger. You don't know what pain they've gone through. You don't know what suffering they've gone through. You don't know what experiences they've gone through. You don't know who they've lost, what lives they've lost. We don't know anything about these people, strangers or even loved ones. We don't know the entire history of their experiences. We just see at that moment they say something we don't like, and we don't like it. And so we perceive the world from that lens of what I want. And so to me, dependent origination, Pratitya Samupata, and understanding the causal relationship of all phenomena is embracing each person, each moment, each experience as it is, without judgment, without critique, without criticism, but with a heart and mind that's open, filled with love and compassion. To understand we don't know anything about most things or people. Does that help?
So it's like looking at the world unfiltered, not without the biases.
Yeah, you could say that. Just be careful with saying looking at the world without biases, because that's using our own perception and judgment of what we think our bias is. But yes, that's a start. Think of it as just looking at the world, perceiving without judging. So I'm not disagreeing with what you said, I just wanted to add that, because I have biases in my mind based on my experiences. And if I drop those biases, sometimes what that means is it's just dropping those and picking up a whole other set of biases. So I have to be careful of that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So to reduce the dukkha, you accept it and sort of embrace it. That was an interesting point that you made, that's how you reduce it.
That's one way. What do we often do when there are things that we dislike? We try to do what?
React,
React, avoid, escape, resist,
fix it.
fix it. How well are all those things working out for you? They all got you here on a Saturday morning, right? So yes, it is accept it, embrace it, be with it, but be very careful here. Often, again, these are for everybody, but also if you're brand new, that doesn't mean that there are things that aren't just terribly, horrifically, disgustingly not okay in this world. And it doesn't mean that things that are going on that we should just think it's okay, right? But if we see things we dislike or that harm us, we need to become aware of them and engage them with compassion and love and understanding, not with all the other words that everybody just threw out there, right? And often we jump to heavy things. Like if for people who are brand new to Buddhism and they want to understand exactly what you're asking about, right? We make it very difficult because we try to tie it towards very heavy emotional things. Do you listen to the radio when you drive? Music? Not the radio, just music. Only music. Why only music? What happens on the radio?
Stress.
Commercials, songs we don't like, right? So let's go back to a time, if for those of you who might be old enough to remember this time, where there was just the radio. As soon as the song came on, it was change it, or a commercial, change it. As soon as the temperature was too hot in the car, right? Turn the air on, roll the window down. As soon as it's too cold, roll the window up, turn the heat on, right? Food we don't like, send it back. We sit down to order a meal. We spend 15 minutes thinking about what do I like, what do I want, what do I need? Simple things that we constantly resist. So we want to know how to deal with all these huge events in the world, but we can't even order food and eat food that isn't prepared to our perfect liking. You know, my greatest example, which I haven't even given probably in a couple months, which is quite shocking. Who here hates mayonnaise? All right, you're the first to carry. You're the first. Oh, and you look at that face. It's disgusting. Everybody look at Kira's face. It's like, no mayonnaise, right? So, I know, I just wanted to mess with you today. So let's say you go to a deli, right? You order a sandwich. What do you tell them always? No mayo. You get the sandwich and there's mayo on it, right? That is dukkha. Are you allergic to mayo? No. So it's not going to kill you, but you're allergic. You're not allergic to it. It won't kill you, but you don't want it. And as soon as there's that mayo, there's this instant dukkha. Discomfort, angst, dissatisfaction. Our entire life is filled with moments like this. So if you're hearing the word dukkha, maybe suffering for the first time, suffering is a terrible translation, I think, of the word dukkha, right? And I listen to enough great Buddhist teachers and scholars talk about dukkha, and they all say it's a terrible translation, so I'm just going to agree with them, right? Because suffering in the English language sounds so heavy, right? Maybe mayonnaise for you is a tremendous suffering, but often we think of suffering as death, loss, things like that. Real severe, tragic suffering for you, it's just mayonnaise. So our entire day is filled with moments like getting mayonnaise on a sandwich. It's not the end of the world. But oh, then we hate the person who served it to us. Not you, but potentially, I mean, when you get mayonnaise on a sandwich, do you go back to them and say, you know what, I really appreciate the sandwich and I really am grateful to eat this, but it has mayonnaise. Can you please take the mayonnaise off of it? That's normally your response, right? Yes. I just making sure. So this is life. This is dukkha. And when we embrace the fact that, wow, maybe I just gratitude to eat, grateful to have a sandwich, right? I even got more on it than I wanted. I didn't even want mayonnaise. They gave me more. They gave me more food than I ordered. How nice of them, So it is. It's embracing it, but it's also shifting our mind to maybe see things from a little bit different perspective. Yeah, in the back.
So I hear what you're saying, but I mean, it also doesn't seem like there's anything to be gained from the additional suffering of forcing yourself to eat something you hate, like sandwich with mayonnaise on it. So is the idea just to accept that sometimes life is going to give you a sandwich with mayonnaise on it?
Yes. Yeah. I didn't say, I appreciate your words, but I didn't say there was anything to gain from eating the sandwich with mayonnaise. In fact, if she eats a sandwich of mayonnaise, she's gonna not like it. But yeah, sometimes life gives us sandwiches with mayo on it. The real question and thing to explore from your question is, why do we roam around thinking that life is about something to gain? Why do we roam around thinking, and I just referenced this the other day, something I threw out there, why do we roam around thinking that we're entitled to anything? I try to remind myself every single day, you're not entitled to anything. We have our breath, if we're lucky. If we wake up, we have our breath. Everything after that is a bonus. And can we learn to just be appreciative of that? Right? It's not about torturing ourselves or, seeking out. But I will say that if you're one who struggles with these types of things that I'm talking about, then sometimes it requires to learn how to get through it. It requires, yes, if I want to learn patience, if I want to learn embracing things as they are, then maybe I should sometimes eat a sandwich with mayonnaise just to know what it's like to be uncomfortable and get through it. Because as you all threw out the words earlier, when you're uncomfortable, you're constantly trying to run from it. And this practice isn't about running towards what you love. This is what the Buddha talked about with aversion, right? He spoke very clearly. There's pleasant, there's unpleasant, there's neutral. And it is that judgmental mind, that dualistic mind that says, I want this and I don't want that. I need this and I don't need that. And that's the mind we live with. And that is the reason we suffer. Yeah.
What happens if sitting still brings a lot of anxiety to the surface? If it's like anxiety provoking to sit completely still and silent?
What happens? You experience anxiety. That's what happens. Rethink your question. So the question is, what happens if when you're sitting still, you experience anxiety? Well, what happens is you experience anxiety. But here's the good news. For the 20 minutes, let's say you sat still and you felt anxiety. Did you get up? Did you run? Did you scream? But you didn't. You didn't do any of those things. So you learned meditation doesn't fix things. If sitting still and quiet for 15 or 20 minutes makes you become aware of your anxiety, then you have a lot of anxiety. That's the first step. If somebody told you that meditation is going to fix your anxiety, nonsense. Right? All we're doing then is running for the thing to fix things. Recognize the cause of anxiety. This is what the Buddha taught, to look at the cause and effect. The effect is anxiety. The cause is what? Wanting to control outcomes. Afraid of how the world's going to turn out. Disliking things that are around my life. There are causes to the anxiety. Meditation is just a Band-Aid that fixes things. Because as soon as you walk outside these doors, they don't care that you finished your meditation. They're going 1,000 miles an hour and they will run you over. So meditation doesn't fix things. It makes you become aware, which is really why I say think about the nature of your question. What happened is you sat and you felt tremendous amount of anxiety. What that means is throughout your day, you have a ton of anxiety going on, which is probably what led most people to meditation to begin with. But I always caution people that, it's like if you have a headache, you take 2 Advil, headache goes away. Next day, another headache, take 2 more Advil, headache goes away. You spend your entire life popping Advil. Never looking at why am I getting the headache to begin with. Begin to explore why you're getting the anxiety to begin with. I often joke, even though it's a very serious thing, half the people that come to the Dharma Bone Temple are in therapy and the other half are therapists, right? And therapy and therapists are always saying, go do meditation, it'll help with stress, it'll help with anger, it'll help with anxiety. And yes, it will kind of, stabilize you for a short period of time. But then what? We have to get to the root of where the anxiety is coming from. Yeah.
Well, I think for me, the way that it helps is that though I do feel the urge, like I have to get out of here. I'm just gonna leave as quietly as I can. I have to get out. I can't sit. The fact that I do sit and I kind of let that flow out of me, I say I can't just sit here silently for 20 minutes.
Absolutely. Yes.
Then I can maybe do that at other times when I feel anxious, just to kind of sit with it.
Yes.
And realize that it dissipates and that I'm not gonna have to like freak out, run away.
Correct. Yeah, that, for you, that again, it's the same metaphor. For you, sitting is anxiety and you learn to be with it, right? For Kira, eating a mayonnaise sandwich sucks and you learn to be with it because your entire life is going to be filled with moments that we want to run from. So the meditation practice is a beautiful way to learn to sit with emotions that arise and recognize in the Buddhist teachings on impermanence, right? All conditioned phenomena is impermanent. Anxiety, it's not real. It's a story in your head that creates this emotional reaction, which feels real. I mean, it's doing things, right? But it's based on a story you're telling yourself. And so the idea is to recognize that that thought, that story, that creation of anxiety is just as impermanent as anything else. Thoughts arise, they pass. More thoughts arise, they pass. Emotions arise, they pass. And so meditation becomes a perfect way to practice and be with things that are uncomfortable.
I do think of it as a way that subsides.
For sure.
And then you're like, okay, you come to the surface again for air to breathe.
Yep.
And you know that wave is not gonna keep you down forever.
Absolutely. Yeah. Definitely. Other questions?
Can you recommend any podcasts or books in regards to Buddhism between the week rather than wait until Saturdays?
Yeah, well, definitely don't wait till Saturdays. One, we have classes every night, every morning. San Diego is filled with places that have meditation and Buddhist stuff every night, every morning. Most of them are also pretty decent. Especially the ones that are here are pretty decent. The costs of the ones here are phenomenal. They're just as free as every other class we do here. I'll get to the book thing in a minute, but it's important to understand that different people share Buddhist practice and meditation in different ways and to explore those things. If someone's only been listening to me for the last 5 years, that's the worst thing in the world you want to do, right? I mean, I'm just as a messed up fool as anybody else in this room, right? No, I am. I'm convincing you of that right now. I'm removing any doubt, right? If I can do half of the things I sit here and talk about, then that's phenomenal. I am a practitioner just like anybody else. I've just been looking at the Buddhist teachings and working on them for a very long time, failing at them for a very long time, and continuously practicing for a very long time. And then people say, oh, Jeff, don't be so hard on yourself. I'm not being hard on myself. I'm just being realistic. This practice is not easy, right? So learn to sit with others as well. Books, there's to me, one of the best intro to Buddhism books out there is called Lotus in the Stream. It's out of print. You can get it on Amazon. And it's Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, Dependent Origination, Karma, Rebirth, how to practice Buddhism, all the basic core Buddhist teachings in like 10 to 15 pages. It was written by a master in Taiwan and translated by Tom Graham, who's 50-something-year-old dude from the Midwest. And he did a phenomenal job at, I think, taking these teachings and putting it into ways that we can all relate to it. The other book that I strongly recommend is called Zen Mind, Beginner Mind. Food for You downstairs has it. It's, to me, I always say those two books are the Bible. For me, like a Buddhist Bible, because it's the core teachings of Buddhism and the Zen practice, which then to me cuts through all the stories in our head that lead to suffering to begin with. So Lotus in the Stream, Amazon, and then Zen Mind, Beginner Mind. Yeah. It was the part where you said you wait till Saturdays, and I was like, please don't
Well,
wait till Saturdays.
I just don't come very often,
Yeah.
but when I do, I wish I would have been coming more often.
For sure. Understood. Yes, and then we'll close.
Dharmapada was a book that I picked up when
Yeah.
I was 25, The Sayings of the Buddha.
Yes,
It's a tiny thing I kept in my purse. It just was a game changer. for
yes.
my life.
Dhammapada is an incredible text. The first line in it is, mind is the forerunner of all evil. That's all you need to know, right? You can keep reading it. It's a great book. But it's a phenomenal text. Podcasts, there's a bunch out there people use. I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a podcast.
Yeah, I had a feeling. Go ahead.
It's called The One You Feed. It always starts out with like this parable about two wolves and then kind of which one wins, and it's the good wolf or the bad wolf, and it's the one you feed. And then they always have a guest, someone that's kind of a
What's it called?
The One You Feed.
The One You Feed.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
And then they kind of discuss that parable and Buddhist philosophy.
Yeah. There's another great audio, I think it's Dhamma Talks or Audio Dharma, the Thich Nhat or Thanissaro Bhikkhu, Tom Jeff's teachings for Metaphorist. They changed it not that long ago, so, but yeah. Yep. And then sometimes it's great to just be stuck with yourself. Because that's ultimately, the books, the teachings, the podcasts, they're all wonderful things, and that's what we use to get us through our weeks. But don't forget to balance that with just good old you. Because if you're always running from you, then you're never going to learn to be with you. And you're not nearly as bad as you think you are. So, anything else before we close? So those are the church bells. All right, so we'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to Simba during his time of rebirth, and to the Hatch family during their time of suffering. May they all be at peace. May we all be at peace.